Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the endless homeschool options? Why do so many of us turn to workbooks as the default learning option? Is homeschooling really about academics, or are there deeper, more personal reasons why we homeschool? Does socialization really happen better in traditional school settings, or are homeschoolers thriving in their own way? Do grade levels or grades matter when it comes to real learning, or are we too focused on arbitrary milestones? When was the last time you truly assessed your child's learning without relying on tests? And what if there was a better way? And how much is too much time when it comes to extracurricular activities? Are we overloading our kids in the name of giving them opportunities? Hey, if you're new here, I'm Xuan, and I am a homeschool mentor and mindful living coach. And today I want to share some of my hot takes on homeschooling. So let's get to it. So curriculum. Not all curriculum is helpful or necessary. There's a lot of, I get it. I get it. There's people who are homeschooling their kids. They're not feeling confident in being able to homeschool their kids. And so they rely on curriculum to help homeschool their kids. The thing is, you don't really need curriculum to homeschool your kids. I got interrupted there. Okay, I'm back. So if you decide to go the curriculum route and you decide that the curriculum is not working for you, it's okay to ditch it. You don't need to you stick with the curriculum. And then also, if you find that you are unable to find a perfect curriculum because there is no such thing as a perfect curriculum, then it's okay. You don't need to use a perfect curriculum. You can use an imperfect curriculum, and that's okay too. Or you can use no curriculum, and that's even better, I think. I mean, think about it. People that homeschooled like 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, longer, they didn't have curriculum. They just used books and real life experiences. And, you don't need a curriculum to learn how to write. You don't need a curriculum to learn how to read. Maybe for math, you need a curriculum. I mean, I am not too confident in teaching math, but nowadays you have things like Khan Academy where your kids can just go online and learn it themselves. A curriculum will not make or break your homeschool, so be okay with that. Here's my hot take here. Workbooks are not the holy grail of homeschooling. You do not need to use workbooks. Maybe sometimes you'll have a workbook to help. Maybe you have a math workbook. I can understand that. But other types of workbooks, you don't have to use them. If you choose not to use a workbook because your kids hate it, that's okay. Don't force your kids to use a workbook. They don't need to use workbooks. They can have a solid education without workbooks. Yes, you may have enjoyed workbooks when you were a kid, but are your kids you? Or are they you? They're probably not you. I'm assuming they're not you. They're their own individual. So just because you liked it or you see benefit in it doesn't mean it's the best learning tool for your kids. And maybe it is. Maybe your kids thrive using workbooks. Then go for it. You need to do what's best for your kids. But just remember, workbooks, I think they're highly overrated. And I think there are more engaging ways to teach your kids, because the goal is to have our kids become lifelong learners where they're gonna love learning. And if you're just giving them workbooks and they're just bored, they're just filling it out, they're just, going through the motions basically to get it done and move on, then are they really learning? Are they really enjoying it? Or are they going to continue the pursuit in education in the future because they're overloaded with workbooks? So skip the workbooks, or maybe use them. I mean, we do use math workbooks because that works for us, but that's about it. Skip the workbooks. People homeschool for more than just academics. It's very complex. If you watched my last video, you'll know our reasons, my reason for homeschooling my kids, but my reasons aren't someone else's reasons. We all are very individual people. We all have our own experiences and life circumstances. It's just, we're all humans, yes, but we're all very different. I mean, there's 8 freaking billion people in this world. And to think that we're all exactly the same, experience life exactly the same is kind of ludicrous, naive, ignorant. Don't want to really say that, but it's the truth. We all have different reasons for homeschooling. And I am always flabbergasted when people come up to me, homeschoolers themselves come up to me and automatically assume that I'm homeschooling my kids for religious purposes. It's like, you don't even know me. How do you even know what my religion is or not is? It just, I'm always just no, I don't homeschool because of that. I homeschool so we can go on field trips and wake up whenever we want to and take the classes that we want to take and learn the things that we want to learn. I don't homeschool for any other reason than that, and that's okay. So I encourage you to like challenge the assumptions that people have about homeschoolers. Like I know some of my non-homeschooling friends, some of them even assume that I'm homeschooling my kids to keep them safe because of the world that we live in today. And it's like, no, that's not why I homeschool my kids. Stuff like that can happen anywhere, not just at schools. I mean, we hear about, shootings at grocery stores and concerts and other things. So like I think people need to widen their ideas about why people homeschool. And I also think people need to stop making up stories in their heads about and making assumptions about other people and why they're doing what they're doing. So one of my most popular blog posts is about dealing with people, mainly family members maybe, that don't approve of your homeschooling. And one of the major reasons why they don't approve is because your kids won't be able to socialize. Homeschoolers are not isolated human beings. I mean, yeah, I guess there are some people out there that choose to isolate themselves and their families. There's always an exception to everything, and you can't use that exception, as a reason why something shouldn't be happening, because there's no matter what in life, there's always going to be exceptions. But for the most part, well, homeschoolers I know, at least here in California, maybe it's different somewhere else in the world, but here where I live in Southern California, we have a very large homeschooling population. There's a lot of vendors out there that offer classes catered to homeschoolers. There's just so many ways to get your kids out there. There's like homeschool groups and co-ops and homeschool days at museums and or at the library. It's like just a lot of different ways to socialize your kids. And then on top of that, who says that your kids have to socialize with people their own age? I mean, my kids are easily able to talk to adults with no problem. I know some public school kids that cannot talk to adults. They can talk to kids their own age, but they're uncomfortable talking to adults. What's your idea of socialization? Yeah, they don't have to deal with most of the drama that happens at school with all the people that are there in one location, lots of drama. They don't have to deal with all those dramas. And I don't know, are they lacking? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I know homeschoolers that are now adults that have graduated homeschooling, and they seem to be functioning rather well. I mean, is the goal for kids to be cool and popular? Then maybe don't homeschool your kids if that's what you value. But I feel like most homeschoolers, they don't value that. They don't value popularity. Instead, they value deeper connections. And I think that is more rewarding than being super popular and having a ton of friends. Or maybe, how do you know what your kids are going to be or not be like in school? Like maybe your kid is going to be very, very shy and isolate themselves and not have any friends. Like you don't know. I'd rather be that weird, unsocialized homeschooler than anyone else. And I also want to talk about the quality of interactions my kids have with their friends. Like, yeah, they're not hanging out with their friends every day. Like we see our friends like one day a week. And my kids do interact with others like at their Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class. They go to those like every other day. So they socialize with kids there. They don't really socialize though. They're like busy taking each other down. They're not socializing. My oldest son has 3 art classes, and I guess he socializes there. And I think like half the kids in his art classes are homeschoolers and the other half are not. So, it's a good mix of folks, of kids. And then my daughter takes a horseback riding class, and it's all homeschoolers that are in that class. So maybe instead of worrying about the kids socializing, we should worry about you, the parent. Are you socializing? Are you spending time with your friends and family and not just focusing all your energy on being a homeschool mom? Because there's more to life than that, and your kids are going to grow up and they're going to leave the house, or they're going to ask to not be homeschooled anymore. It happens. Grade levels and grades themselves. They are arbitrary measures. Homeschooling is very fluid and flexible. I'll give my oldest son as an example. In reading and writing, he's at like an upper high school level. Mind you, he's 13. With math, he's probably like at a 6th grade level. And that's okay. Because eventually, math is not his favorite subject. And eventually he'll get caught up. So what do I say? Like he's in 8th grade, but his reading and writing level are at like 11th, 12th grade, and his math is at a 6th grade. So it's kind of like when I got my DNA tested, You know, I've always gone around saying I'm half Irish, half Vietnamese, and then I get my DNA tested, and I'm just like, well, when people ask me, I'm like, well, do you want to know? Do you want to know the short story, or do you want me to go into detail? Because I'm more than just Irish and Vietnamese. I'm way more than that. It's arbitrary. It's just a way for us humans to categorize our kids and say they are in 8th grade, and or my son is in 3rd grade, or my daughter is in 1st grade. But they may be at different levels within the subjects that they are learning, because all kids are different. They learn at different paces. They have different interests. They have different learning styles. It's arbitrary. But that being said, we homeschool through a charter school. And I do ask our homeschool teacher to assign my kids grades each semester, just in case they decide to go back to school or go to a traditional school. Then, it'll be easy. There will be no issues or anything like that. I don't even show my kids those grades. Like those grades do not equate their value as human beings. Standardized testing does not measure real learning. Not at all. You can game the system, and I'm like queen of gaming the testing system, because I will tell you the truth about me. When I'm a smart person. When I was at school, when I would go to school, I would do well. In my later years, I was known to not go to classes because I found them extremely boring, and only show up to like turn in essays or to take a test. And I would always ace the tests in my essays, and that would really irritate the F out of my teachers and professors. Irritate them so freaking much. And because I knew how to game the system, I knew how to write the way they wanted me to write, and I knew how to answer the questions for the tests that they made. I mean, if it was like a standardized test, there's like different mind frames you have to get into. Like the standardized tests have a different mind frame than like a teacher or professor made test. But if you take a teacher professor made test, you just like enter their brains, enter their personalities, and you just read it in their voices, and you know exactly what the answer is without really knowing the answer. With standardized tests, they're very standardized, so like you kind of can figure out the answer using the process of elimination and common sense. Testing does not measure real learning. My kids take the standardized test because we do homeschool through a charter school. And in order for the charter school to keep their charter, they do require a certain percentage of the independent study kids to take these standardized tests so that they continue providing funds to the students so that they can pursue home education and enrichment activities to supplement their education. And so I'm happy for my kids to take those tests, but I let them know like this: you do your best work, but just know whatever score you get does not equate your worth. Like they're just there as like a baseline, basically, to see if you have learned anything. But it's not real learning, because I know a lot of people who are super smart and super intelligent, but they get testing anxiety and they freak out, and they don't do well on tests, like the pressure of it. That doesn't mean that they're not smart. That doesn't mean that they're not haven't learned anything. It just means that they're not good test takers and they have anxiety issues, and it's like so many other factors to it. I think there are alternative ways to assess your child's learning. So it doesn't have to be a test. It doesn't have to be written work. You can have a conversation with your kids and ask them questions and discuss things, talk to them, and treat them like a human. And you can assess their learning that way. Like, who says that learning has to be written down? Like, who says it has to be documented? If you go back in history, in time, was it like Socrates, and he say that the writing, it was gonna like make people not think anymore or something like that? We just need to have a much wider lens when we're looking at the big picture, because sometimes we look at the big picture, but we're not wide enough back to see the big picture. And so testing, not necessary. There's other ways to do it. It does not define your worth. Don't stress your kids out. Extracurricular activities. You don't need to overschedule your kid. You don't need to stress them out in the name of opportunity, to provide them with the best opportunities and the most ideal childhood, and to do all the things that you wish that you wish you had done. Because a lot of times it's things that they wish they had done. You don't have to do that. What do your kids want to do? When it comes to extracurricular, I always ask my kids if they want to do it. I don't just sign them up for it because they have their own ideas of what they want to do, and I want them to have ownership over their education. So I ask them, what kind of activities you want to do this year? What do you want to learn? You know, is there any new skill that you want to learn? Is there any subjects that you want to learn? I ask them. I want them to have ownership. When it comes to extracurricular, I try not to have them do too much. So they are doing like PE. Their PE is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but they're all doing it. They're doing the same exact thing. They are taking one class together, one art class together. So they're doing that together. My daughter is taking horseback riding, and my oldest son is taking 2 additional art classes. But those are all personal choices, and I'm not packing them. There's so much more things that they could do. There's like this awesome Lego teacher nearby that they could be taking Lego classes from. There's like sewing classes and other art classes, and there's chess club, and there's a lot of things that they could be doing. But I don't want to stress myself out, and I don't want to stress them out, and I don't want to have all of our days just me chauffeuring them around from one class to the next. And then when are we going to get learning done? When are we going to be able to do our actual homeschool stuff done? I don't think we need to overschedule our kids. I don't think we need to provide them the best opportunities available. And it's okay if they don't do something. Like my kids were supposed to do chess club this year, but it just didn't work for our schedule. And that's okay. There's a science teacher that's in the area that's really, really good, but it didn't work in our schedule. And I'm not going to force fit it into our schedule because literally we would have barely any time to get from point A to point B for the next thing. And so, yeah, it's okay. It's okay to miss out. It's okay not to do all the things. There's always next year. If we're lucky, there's always next year. And if we don't get to it, that's okay. It's not going to make our life any less special. It's not going to make our life any less deserving. Our kids are going to be okay not doing it all. They're probably going to appreciate not being jam-packed full of doing stuff. They're not going to be 16-year-olds suffering from burnout or having an anxiety attack or whatever because they just have too much on their plate. I mean, don't you look back at your childhood and you just love the amount of freedom that you had and the amount of time that you had? It was just so wonderful. And I feel like today our kids aren't allowed that. Our kids don't have that freedom. They don't have that space. We just live in this rush, 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 do, productivity, checklist, so just everything planned out and scheduled out and all the things getting done so that you can have a good college application, resume, whatever, so that you can get a good job. So yeah, it's we just need to learn to breathe in, breathe out, align our lives with our values and stick to it, and give us some space. Give us some wiggle room. Give us some breathing room. Give our kids some space, some wiggle room, some breathing room. Let them grow to be who they want to be. Let them grow to be who they want to be. So those are my hot takes on homeschooling. I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure you hit the like button and leave a comment down below to let me know what your hot take is in regards to homeschooling. And if you find that you're looking for ways to slow down and be in the moment, I have a handful of openings with my one-on-one coaching, and I'll leave a link down below. And I also have just one opening left for my homeschool mentoring. And I would love to have you join me. I'll see you guys in the next video. I think the next one may be a vlog because I'm not really too into these talking head kind of videos because it makes me tired. I feel like I'm talking too much.